Dynasty Kings, football by the numbers. Ain't nothing prehistoric about it. It's the fantasy land before time, man. You dig?
And we talking about them analytics.
Yeah, I dig it.
You know them digits, we fit it inside ourselves. But thinking outside of the box when we did it, outside prevails. We got 8 inside of the box, but we finished. Plenty to tell, so go ahead and plug in the pot and just listen. It's the Dynasty. Velociraptors it takes, dilapidated no way. Man, it's a rap, no debate. Hey. Breaking it down with a dynasty. Often reside with the pylons be. Often we talking about dynasty. Rocking with read at the times you'll see. Out of the pocket online on me. Too much subjective is not for me. It's not for me. I'm rocking with the dynasty. Dynasty. Locking the lineup and I don't need filming the fables cause finally I got all the facts, no anomaly. Yeah. Let's get it. Y'all reach is T-Rex at best. And I don't mean to go flex. I'm a dino scorers to death. Yeah.
Look, if you dino, you know. Welcome to the Dynasty Kings Fantasy Football Podcast. Jake and Mike, let's ride.
All right, welcome to another episode of Dynasty Kings. I'm joined again by the same prestigious guest here. We have Austin from Campus Campus. Austin, please tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That's the first time anybody's ever called me prestigious or anything better than average, so I appreciate that. You can find me at Devy Deets on Twitter, and then every other thing that I work on is over at campustocanton.com. So go ahead, check that out as well. Mike's also there, so it's a party at Campus.
I love it there. Yeah, I'm actually trying to convert my hometown league to Campus to Canton. They don't know that I do this, by the way, because we're pretty competitive. So I'm trying to be on the low. I'm trying to be like, hey, you guys want to try this new format out?
You hustle on SOB. You hustle on SOB.
They're like, you ever done this before? I was like, no. I'm just going to pick some guy's list like everyone does, like Fantasy Pros or whatever. I'll just Google the first list that pops up, you
know. Double or nothing after the first year. Slow play it. You're gonna, how far out are we going to do this thing? I mean, you could keep this going.
We'll put the training wheels on and we'll do best ball the first year, $10 buy-in. The second year, we'll do 100.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. So today we're talking about bowl game heroes. Last time that me and Austin talked, we brought up guys that we want to see step up and stuff, and who have stepped up so far. But now we're gonna actually get to it and just kind of wrap it up about who actually did step up, and then our expectations or projections of them for college fantasy football, and maybe talk about some NFL upside for some of these guys as well. So Austin, you want to bring up your first guy?
Sure. I mean, we have a lot of guys to talk about. Do you want to start with the running back? Do you want to start with the wide receiver?
I just want to talk about the guy that you're most excited about.
Ooh, okay. Well, the guy that I'm most excited about, I've already been on like 3 shows this offseason, talked about this guy, Lorenzo Styles, wide receiver at Notre Dame. I am just going to have him everywhere next year, I think is probably the way that I'm going to put it. In the bowl game here, 8 catches, 136 yards, and a touchdown for Notre Dame. They narrowly lost out to Oklahoma State in that game. Why I'm high on him going into next year, though. So they're Notre Dame's leading wide receiver this past year, like actual wide receiver, not Michael Mayer, not Kyron Williams, was Kevin Austin, who has declared for the draft. I thought he would definitely be back because he's frankly not very good. But he's on his way. Last year, he had Kevin Austin 16.61% of the reception market share at Notre Dame. He had 24% of their receiving yards and 23% of their receiving touchdowns. So basically an alpha wide receiver's share of things, more or less, more than 25% is probably you could call alpha, but it's close to that. I think Styles steps into those shoes. He's 6'1", he's 195, he's got great size. He reportedly ran a 10.8 100 in high school, so he's got the speed. I think he can be a full package there. And an underrated stat that I actually didn't realize till I was kind of looking at stuff for this. Notre Dame, we think of as this hyper-conservative offense. They passed the ball in total 27th most in the country this year on a per-game basis, the 31st most in the country. So this is not, your granddad's Notre Dame team. This is a team that is willing to pass. So I think there is volume to go around and there is market share to go around. And that's a really good thing for a guy like Lorenzo Styles.
Yeah, so this guy is not on my radar at all whatsoever. So now I'm curious to ask this, is that I see that he's only played, I want to say, 4 games until that bowl game. And I want to ask, like, what led to his opportunity increasing for this season?
So true freshman. I probably should have
Yeah.
stated that when I was talking about him initially. So I think it was just Notre Dame is conservative in the sense that they bring these guys along very, very slowly. And so I just think that's the reason, didn't play a lot early in the year, kind of broke in as the year went on, and was the go-to guy at the end. So I don't see any reason why that can't continue. They don't really have anybody else there that's super exciting outside of, again, Michael Mayer, their tight end.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I know you shouldn't be scouting the helmet and stuff like that, but they put in some really nice prospects in the NFL the last couple of years. I mean, oh my gosh, Chase Claypool from Pittsburgh there, and Will Fuller too. This could be the next Notre Dame guy to hit the NFL. I like the NFL size too. So my last podcast, if you guys missed it, I did talk about height and weight in the NFL and just kind of what is the actual size that tends to be successful. And he is right in that threshold. Like he is right there in those numbers as a freshman too. So
yeah, and I actually prefer his archetype over the 6'4", 210 guy. Like I think that that 6 foot, 6'1", where they're kind of positionless. You can kind of line him up all over the place. I think he's got a little bit of that going on too. So I like him.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah, because those tall guys are like too lanky to play in certain spots. I mean, you got Michael Thomas, who just got all those slants, and that's like his thing. I think Michael Pittman's being utilized the exact same way. It's just, I'm with you. It's sometimes you're just too tall, and you have it's a certain build once you get to a certain height. Too tall and too short.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Julio Jones and Calvin Johnsons out there. So once you get past the unicorns, we'll go a little smaller.
Yeah, right. I got you. All right. Yeah, I don't have anything to add on that one. I want to talk about the freshman running back from Western Kentucky, Noah Whittington. 7 rushes for 150 yards and 1 touchdown. He had a catch for -2 yards, so whatever. But he's a freshman, which of course catches my eye, a true freshman. Got touches, and I know Western Kentucky just lost a lot of their coaching staff, and I think is Stearns going to the draft? Jared Stearns?
Stearns is going. Bailey Zappi's going. They lost Mitchell Tinsley, their other big wide receiver. So they're kind of their 3-headed monster. They're all gone.
So it's wide open. So that's what I'm getting at. Do you have any notes, any thoughts about Whittington?
So I don't have anything specifically on Whittington. What I will caution people, and we have a couple names on the list here that I think it just, it'll bear repeating on this point. Western Kentucky is not a run-first team at all. And I actually, right before we hopped on the podcast, you saw in the group chat, we just added a new writer to the staff, Hannah Page, who is the Western Kentucky contributor for Rivals, and she's going to be doing some different data writing with us. She's an alum there, very plugged in to what's going on there. In fact, like one of the guys on the team is like her next door neighbor. So she knows what's going on. And she told me, I asked her, all Bailey Zappi's leaving, offensive coordinator's leaving, 2 leading wide receivers are leaving. Does that mean we're going to see more of a rush game? And she said she doesn't think so. She said that the guy that's stepping in as the OC has basically been the right-hand man of the former offensive coordinator. So it's probably, stylistically going to be the same exact thing. They do lose, again, the quarterback, Bailey Zappi, going to the Senior Bowl, maybe a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. They don't have a proven guy behind him. She thinks, last year was pure air raid. Maybe it's not quite air raid level, but they still only ran the ball 24 times a game, basically just to keep defenses honest. So I would caution anybody. I mean, the guy that got the most touches for them last year was Whittington. He had 101 carries in 12 games. Like it's not a high volume rush offense. So unless he's hitting the home runs like he did in this one, I don't know how much value a running back at Western Kentucky is going to have for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Yeah. So just again, for everyone that's listening, I don't think I explained this at the beginning. Like last time, I'm giving the box score. Like I'm just looking at the guys that put up the numbers, and I'm looking at the age, and that's it. Where Austin here knows more than me, and he's out here letting you know these details right here that, like, doing what he's doing. Like the reason why I brought him on this podcast to give me these details that I don't know.
It's a color of the numbers. You gave me the shape, and I'm filling it in. I got my crayons. I'm set over here.
God, I'm saying it so well. All right, let's I do want to talk. Let's talk about a prospect here that we were talking about before the show. Let's talk about Jay Ducker from what was NIU, and he went off for. Oh, I just lost my note. Okay, he went off for 24 rushes for 146 yards, 1 catch for 15 yards, his only catch for the whole season, by the way. And he immediately declared for the transfer portal right after the game. And he ended on a hot streak too. He went three out of his last 4 games were over 100 yards. So he was definitely catching fire towards the end there. Also, got any thoughts on Jay Ducker?
I am so glad you put him on here. I love Jay Ducker. And I actually said this at one point on the C2C pod or something this year. Outside of like the obvious, Bama, Georgia, some of those big schools, NIU might have had the best Devy backfield in the country last year. And they used them. They ran the ball more. I actually found this out today. Ran the ball more than any team in the country that's not a service academy. Ran the ball just a shit ton. And Ducker was one of the main guys. Ontario Brown, Harrison Whaley, they all kind of got in there. Brown and Ducker are interesting. Ontario Brown, who's the guy that's probably, pushed Ducker out the door, he had some attitude issues coming out of high school that probably led to him ending up there. He's definitely just, based on pure talent, way too good to be at Northern Illinois. No offense to our large Northern Illinois listening base here that I know is out there. But Ducker, is kind of the same way. Local kid, probably was too good to end up there, ended up there anyway. He's extremely well-rounded. Only the 1 catch on the year, but I think he can do it at a pretty decent level. So I do think him going to Memphis now, he might have to share that backfield with Brandon Thomas, who was the incumbent this year. But Thomas, there are rumors that he suffered a very serious injury at the end of last year. They literally have not disclosed anything about it. But the fact that bringing Ducker in does make me think that there is some truth to those rumors. So can Ducker take that job? Maybe. And I'm kind of hopeful that he does because I just think he's really, really good.
Yeah. So are you worried about his size, though? So he only had 3 touchdowns last year. He clearly doesn't get in the end zone. Probably, I didn't watch NYU. So again, I'm just doing the box score analysis here. I'm imagining that for his size, he did not get the red zone work, that goal line work. He only had 3 touchdowns on the whole entire year. And I wanted to correct myself from earlier. 7 out of his last 8 games were for over 100 yards. But again, there was no touchdowns in there. So concerns about that, concerns about his size. So for me, clearly, he is a college asset, not going to be an NFL asset.
So I think he can make it to the NFL. I'm not going to say he's going to be, a day 2 guy or whatever, but I think he can get there. He does have the frame. I think he's only listed like 195. I think he has the frame to get above like 205, 208. I don't know if he will. Memphis has done a pretty good job with undersized backs in recent times, though. So, yeah, even if I'm just looking for a guy to produce in college, I think Ducker can be that. And I wouldn't write off him gaining weight and still maintaining a lot of his explosiveness, which is kind of one of his calling cards right now.
Yeah, I have him listed as 185 here. I believe I just saw. So,
oh boy, I've got him way oversized. Then that's my bad.
but you're right. They have been successful with undersized guys. Darrell Henderson was smaller. Kenny Gainwell, who just went to the NFL, was smaller. Brandon Thomas right now is only 200 pounds. But he can put on the weight. He definitely has the frame for that. But all right, you ready to move on to the next prospect?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, you give me one. I went twice in a row.
All right. So it was really funny because you listed all running backs and I listed all wide receivers. So it worked out really, really well. I'll toss out another wide receiver, actually one that you had tossed on the list. And I had him in my notes as well as Parker Washington, wide receiver at Penn State. I think he's on the border. He's probably the most well-known guy that we're going to talk about here today because he broke out as a true freshman there at Penn State behind Jahan Dotson and was a reasonably decent level prospect coming out of high school. But no Jahan Dotson next year as declared for the NFL draft, will be at the Senior Bowl. And he had a considerable amount of the market share there at Penn State this year. Jahan Dotson did. He had 31% of their receptions, 34% of their yardage, and 48% of their receiving touchdowns. So there is a huge void there. Parker Washington, I think, is the obvious guy. Went 798 in the bowl game. And he's very versatile. Like he's like one of those kind of, again, positionless guys, like 5'10", 5'11". He's listed over 200 pounds. So he's got, he's kind of a thicker built guy. He's not scrawny. And I think he can win at all three levels. Like I think he can win deep if he needs to. Intermediate's kind of going to be his bread and butter. But I do think he's very well rounded. So give me him. And then they actually have another guy, Keandre Lambert-Smith, there that I think is just a name to keep your eye on going into next year. Same age, same year as Parker Washington. They'll be third-year guys.
Yeah, I love Parker Washington to step up. I'm right now in the middle of a 23 mock draft with Jared Wackerly, Nick Whalen, Felix Sharp, who's another co-founder of Campus Kin. A lot of big names, and I actually happen to scoop Parker Washington at the 2-9 in this Superflex rookie draft. I think the feeling right now for the community, I want to say it's locked in, but I feel like he's a day 2 pick probably next year in the draft minimum here. Like not locked in, but that's probably the consensus right now where everyone's at. So I think he's a great steal.
Day 2 feels good. I would be hard pressed to predict he hits day 1, but it's definitely not impossible. Just I would say less likely. I mean, Jahan Dotson probably not a first round pick. He'll be close.
So, you think so? I think he can get in there. I think he
if he goes, it'll be like 27th overall or something. Like, right. I don't think he'll be a guy that like is just a far pick 19. Like I think he'll sneak in maybe, but those guys are fairly borderline.
But top 50, you there for top 50?
Yeah, I think he's top 50. Okay. He's my like just overall in my C2C rankings. He's my wide receiver 21 right now, and I haven't taken out like Jameson Williams, Wan'Dale Robinson, like some of those. So he'll probably jump up to top 15, top 13, top 12. So I mean that's pretty highly rated there.
Yeah, I do believe in these. Getting on a little tangent here, I do believe in these rookie drafts coming up for our leagues for Dynasty, not C2C. I think Jameson was going to drop. I'm kind of excited about it because I'm pretty popularly. I like to trade away my first, but then I collect early seconds like it's a game, and so I'm hoping that Jameson Williams will now falls like the early second. I feel like that could happen for a few leagues too.
Are you a big Jameson Williams guy?
He's my wide receiver 3.
Okay.
So
behind Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks.
Correct. Yeah. I still struggle to put Drake London up there. I just can't endorse contested catch guys. I think his contested catch rate was 24%. Like a quarter of his passes were contested catch passes.
Yeah, it's a tough sell.
And I get it though. He dominates them. Like he absolutely dominates them. I still can't endorse it. And N'Keal Harry did the same thing. He dominated contested catches, and
that's a bad name. It's like Voldemort. We don't say that name.
Yeah, I'm a Patriots fan too. It makes me feel even worse about it. I was so excited. I like watched his like highlight tape like probably 30 times. I was getting so hyped about it.
Do you still go watch it sometimes, like when you're sad, or is it? It's just too much now?
I haven't looked at it in a while. I like remember the song too. It was. All right. So the next guy I really want to talk about here is the running back from Minnesota, Kai Thomas. Am I saying that right? Kai Thomas?
Kai Thomas, yes, sir.
Yes, I'm a big fan. Now, I realize that the big question in the room is that Mohamed Ibrahim comes back from his ACL. I assume he's not going to the draft. I haven't heard any news about that at all. But Mo is going to be, 24 after this next college season? I believe he's an older prospect already.
He's almost as old as I am, and I turned 30 this year. So, like,
yeah.
So he's old.
I really do think I mean they might not pass the torch, but I guess the question is gonna be how involved is Mo. But for Kai Thomas though, he has that NFL size. I believe he's 5'10", 205, if I'm right. 3 of his last 4 games were over 100 yards. He clearly got the workhorse load towards the end of the season. And then for the bowl game, he goes for 21 for 144 and 1. No catches on his resume as of right now. But as far as freshman goes, I like that size. He just needs to add 5 more pounds for me. Like that's really it, which he can easily do for the next 2-3 years. And I like Kai Thomas for the future. And if you can't use him next year because of Mo Ibrahim, you can probably use him after Mo leaves the year after that.
So you're in luck because Kai Thomas is leaving Minnesota. He said it's too cold. There are too many dudes up here. I can't beat them all. So he's in the portal. He has not decided on a spot yet. I know he's from I think he's from Kansas. Okay. He's taken some visits to Kansas and Kansas State. either of those would be intriguing options based on
Where
the
does
offense
his
they run there.
Where does his girlfriend go? What college does his girlfriend go
We
to?
need to get the detectives on this to figure this out. Yeah. That's the theme this offseason. Where does everybody's girlfriend go? So I don't know where he's going to end up, but I think it'll be someplace where he has a role, because he would not have had one next year. He only had one this year because everybody got injured, but everybody is coming back from Minnesota. So not to say he's a bad player. He's a good player, and that's why he's leaving to find more playing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the transfer portal is for. That's what Jameson Williams did. Like, he had to leave to showcase his skills.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts about Kai Thomas? I guess I don't know.
I mean, he's pretty well rounded. I don't know how good of a pass catcher he is. Like, just truly don't really know. But he is definitely a pretty good between the tackles runner, and he was a bit of a Devy favorite when he came out as a freshman last year. So he's been on the radar here for a little bit. He's not, it didn't come out of nowhere, which is nice as well.
All right, do you want to bring up the next prospect?
Yeah. How about everybody at Alabama?
Okay.
They got, they came across the ocean. What was that explorer that came across the ocean and they burned all the ships and they're like, we can't go back. Like, all the guys out there is burning the ships. They ain't coming back.
Cortez. Cortez. Sorry, I love that guy. I love that you brought that up. Dude was psychotic, but somehow with 500 guys, he brought down an empire the size of a European empire.
Good times. So everybody left Alabama this offseason. Like, it's actually really weird to think about, especially because they were not a very experienced team. But like, every single skill guy is gone. And I don't like Brian Robinson Jr. is leaving. The replacement's obvious. They're bringing Jahmyr Gibbs in from Georgia Tech. He's going to be the guy. At wide receiver, though, I think it's really interesting. I tweeted out, and I was doing a little prep earlier for the show, playing around on campuscant.com. We just have a huge database where you can go in and basically sort by team, by like market shares, and you can kind of, break all of that out. And so here's what I found. At Alabama, just from the wide receiver position, not including their starting tight end and starting running back, who were both leaving and both had a decent sized market share as well, they are losing 58% of their receptions market share, 64% of the receiving yards, and 56% of the touchdowns from Jameson Williams, John Mechie, Slade Bolden, all declared for the draft, and then Javon Baker entered the portal. And there might be more where that came from over the next few weeks. So what do we do with that? Ja'Cory Brooks had the biggest games in the bowl game. So I think, you got to think he might be the next guy up. He went 4 for 66, had that big touchdown against Cincy, and then had another 6 catches for 47 yards in the Natty. A guy Hall had 2 catches for 52 yards there in the championship game as well. One of them, JoJo Earl, a freshman coming in. That seems unlikely with Nick Saban, but who knows? Because do they go get a transfer? I mean, it's very much a bit of a mystery, but I think the discussion has to start with Ja'Cory Brooks.
Okay. I personally like a guy Hall, but his hands were terrible, man. I mean, he's a freshman, you can improve on that. But I'm going to echo something that was said on the Devy debate, but didn't his first 5 targets on his first 10 reps, and there, yeah. So I mean, so he has the chemistry with the quarterback incumbent who's still there, is Bryce Young, and so if he can build on that, but actually fix his hands, get on the field, get that playing time, I like a guy Hall. But just like you said, they're wide open for transfers and stuff like that. Do you believe that maybe one of the freshmen could step up here?
I have a really hard time ever betting on the freshman at Alabama, but if a class was going to do it, it would be this one, just based on the opportunity.
Right.
They have 2 of my top 6 or 7 guys in the class, but they had literally my top 3 guys in the class last year that all went there. So
yeah,
I mean,
that's how it goes.
the talent's there.
Off the top of your head, if you can, do you know when the last time a freshman from Alabama was really involved in the offense? Because I really can't. I'm trying to think about it. I cannot.
So I know Devonta Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Henry Ruggs were all in the same class. Devonta Smith and Jerry Jeudy were both heavily involved. Devonta Smith caught the game-winning touchdown in the national championship game that year. Jerry Jeudy, I think, had a breakout, if I remember correctly. He might not have hit it, but he was definitely involved. So Jalen Waddle got on the field too. They all got on the field a little bit. So 3 or 4 years ago, I guess at this point this is probably the last time that a freshman is really, and Julio Jones obviously had a beastly freshman year, but
right.
Not everybody's Julio. So.
All right, let's. I'm going to bring up a running back now. I'm going to bring up a topic that's. People hate this topic, but Braylon Allen, running back for Wisconsin. I don't know if you knew this, but he's only 17 years old. You should probably go tell Felix that.
Only 17.
Yeah. I like Braylon Allen. I mean, his production it's hard to deny his production and then say he's not a top 10, top 5 guy in his class. But I watched this tape and I do understand the hesitation from people. I don't see the athletic, there's no burst, there's no speed. I think he has like elite level vision and patience. But then when that hole opens up, I don't see him go, because I don't think he has a physical ability to do that. He doesn't have that. I think he lacks the athletic upside, but I think all the fundamentals are almost there, So he weighs 240 and he weighs 238. Okay, 238 is what he weighs.
Yeah, how dare you round up?
Yeah, sorry. Don't want to hurt his feelings, man. It's kind of that season. But I would like to see him lose 15 pounds, and I think that would hopefully solve or definitely would help his speed issue, and maybe we can see a little more work in the offseason for him to get that speed, get that burst, to do, hit the training and stuff like that. Again, 17 years old, very moldable. He's still a fresh slate. So what are your thoughts about Braylon Allen right now? And then what you think the high end, low end of what he could be in the future?
I do wish you had told me we were talking Braylon Allen this morning so I could have mentally prepared myself all day instead of the half hour before the show here. I think this will be a big topic of discussion all offseason. And first off, I don't want to say I'm low on Braylon Allen, but for instance, I did a poll and I was like, who should be the top guy that goes in 2020, startups this offseason and camp drafts? And the first couple picks, it's Bijan Robinson, Travion Henderson, guys that are Devy studs that are very relevant for that discussion. And they're probably going to crush it in college the next couple of years. And I gave 4 options. I don't remember what the 4 were. And then I said, or other. And somebody said Braylon Allen. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe I am just, out on Braylon Allen if this is going to be the sentiments. I mean, statistically, he crushed it this year. I don't have the long speed concerns that you do, actually. I just think it takes him a very long time to get there. It would not shock me if he was timed at close to 21 miles per hour. I have to ask our resident mile per hour guru, David, to pull that for us.
I would be shocked if he hits 20. I think he's more in the 19s.
You would be shocked at how some of these guys get once they get going. You would be very, very shocked.
Okay.
I think he hits at least 20 and a half, and it would not shock me if he hits 21. It just takes him, 30 yards to get there. Whereas a guy like Nicholas Singleton coming in this year's draft, who's been clocked at 21.8 miles per hour, he hits it after 10. So that, that's kind of the difference between some of these guys. But he's big. I don't like betting on that archetype necessarily. I don't know. We literally just don't know if he can catch passes at all. And with Wisconsin being the way it is, I don't know if we'll ever have that information. I personally prefer more well-rounded backs. I love Will Shipley, who's at Clemson. I have over him. I think he's, he's a very dangerous as a pass catcher, has, requisite size, very over 21 miles per hour kind of running guy. I really like Donovan Edwards at Michigan, who flashed a little bit in some of these bowl games for them down the stretch. I think he's more versatile as a receiver. He caught, he had 9 catches for 150 yards or something in the one game. I just like some of those guys more than I like Braylon Allen. But Allen is certainly a top 10 guy in his class for me. And if he does this for 3 years, I think at that point it starts becoming difficult to say he's not going to get that draft capital. Obviously, if you're waiting 3 years, you're not going to have him because, if you're playing Devy, he's already going to be scooped up. But so I like him. I think the jury is still very much out on him. And I wouldn't be upset if he lost 10 pounds. I don't think he needs to lose, 15, 20, but get down sub 230, I think would be really good for him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just a big boy, man. I just watched him move, and I'm like, oh, nice cut. And then I'm like, okay, when he's gonna go? When are you gonna go? Like,
I mean,
he's just real slow.
those big guys can be successful. They just some of them need like kind of a runway to get started. I think AJ Dillon is very much the same way there in Green Bay, and that was kind of my knock on him coming out of school
Yeah,
was I just think if you stop him at the line and you ask him to stutter step at all, and like I think that's when a guy like AJ Dillon struggles, and I think that's when a guy like Braylon Allen will also struggle.
right. Yeah, I like the thing about Ramondre Stevenson and how he lost weight going from college to the NFL, and now he looks like a totally different back now. Like honestly, he really does. He really looks really different. Because before, like watching his college tape, I was like, this guy can't get to the edge. Like there's no way he could beat a defender to get to the edge for his life. And now it looks like he can. He looks like he has the speed for it. He clearly lost some amount of weight. I think it was 15 pounds. So he went from 240 to 225. But
yeah. I have the running back prospect for you, buddy. There's a 275 plus pound kid coming in this freshman class this year. I'll send his tape your way. You can go watch this guy.
I watched. Is he like huge? I'm talking. Like I think I've seen it. I think I've seen it floating around the internet.
He is legitimately enormous, and 24/7 I think has him listed at like 215. And I like turned it on. I was like, there is no way this dude is 215. Like he's legit 275.
On paper, they put like the slightest mid. Yeah. You're like, oh, that's a 1, not a 7.
Yeah, like he's a big boy.
All right. Okay, let's move on to our next one. Did you want to bring one up?
I mean, I only have a couple left here. I think Texas Tech is an interesting spot to go to. The only quarterback we're really going to talk about here, as I think the fill-in quarterback performances more or less in these bowl games were not pretty.
I had one quarterback I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
I'll do it after this though.
Perfect. So I wrote down Donovan Smith, who's at Texas Tech. And granted, I think this is a bit of I already liked Donovan Smith, played a couple games down the stretch and looked pretty good. I had 252 yards passing, 2 total touchdowns in this one. There is some concern that he doesn't fit at all what the new offensive coordinator does. We were talking about Western Kentucky a few minutes ago, and we said their OC is leaving. That he's going to Texas Tech. They run, air raids, spread, timing. Like Donovan Smith is a big athletic guy, and he's not a bad passer, but I don't know. He's not Bailey Zappi in terms of a technician. So I don't know if that marriage is built to last or not, but I think he's a guy that I'm paying really close attention to through the spring game and see who's getting the reps there. And then their running back, Taj Brooks, is another guy. He's listed at 220, and I think that's probably close. I'd put him closer to 215-ish if I had to guess. I just really like this kid. Like, it was not a super highly rated recruit. Filled in this year for Roderick Thompson, who was their starter when he went down with an injury. He's not like super fast, but I think his first couple steps are really explosive, and I think he's just a good running back. I think he's being slept on. He had 16 carries, 107 yards, a touchdown in this game when he split the backfield. I think he could be a dangerous guy, and I think he can make it to the NFL. And he caught like 25 balls as a freshman last year, so like that is very much a part of his game as well.
Okay. I don't have anything for you on Texas Tech. It's one of those Texas teams that I feel like has just underperformed as a Texas team overall. We're all very excited to see the Western Kentucky coaching staff go there. But besides that, I got nothing else to add there. I'm just very excited to see what that coaching staff can do with the tools and weapons they have there already.
They really haven't had consistent quarterback play. So I think, the new OC is going to be a big, because he was Patrick Mahomes' QB coach.
Okay.
Was there.
Yes.
So like he's got a background working with some of these guys. So I have hopes that he can work with a guy like Donovan Smith and kind of sculpt that clay into something that's a little more refined.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna get into the next QB then. And I really just add this here. It's like kind of like a small topic of conversation. I just want to bring him up. It's Aiden O'Connell, the Purdue quarterback. He went for, give me 1 second. He went for 26 for 47 for 534 yards and 5 touchdowns. And the only reason why he sticks out to me this year was because I remember watching Rondell Moore's tape and David Bell too, because they're both together there for a little bit. And I was just disgusted by O'Connell and just how he looked like Big Ben out there. How he can only throw the ball like 5 yards and that's it. And I hated his tape last year. And so this year, he really surprised me that he's actually more throwing it downfield. He's slinging it. And I know we talk about analytics here a little bit more now at the Campus to Can Slack. He is fifth for QBR. And that's a huge indicator of future success. And so, yeah, I just want to know what your thoughts were about him. I feel like he might be my flag plan to be like that quarterback that comes out of nowhere. I'm really about his draft stock next year. He's definitely on that list for me where I'm keeping an eye on him for next year and maybe being an actual NFL asset.
So it's interesting you say, he had a really high QBR. Jeff Brom is the head coach at Purdue. He is something of a QB expert. He consistently has his quarterbacks finish as like top 5, top 10 most efficient quarterbacks in the country.
Okay.
Like some of it's system and some of it's just, he is really, really good at developing quarterbacks, but he's been at Louisville, he's been at Illinois, he's been at Western Kentucky, and now at Purdue. He had like Mike White was his quarterback at Western Kentucky, who is with the Jets right now. And
He looked good.
Like he got Mike White to be like a top 5 NCAA quarterback, for like multiple years. Like, I mean, he just, that's what he does. So I do think that Aiden O'Connell is bound to have a really good year now that he's kind of the guy there and he's been in the system for a year or two. So I would not shock me at all if he does, top 5, top 10 in terms of efficiency and QBR and all that next season.
Okay. That's all I had to bring up about Aiden O'Connell. It's just I'm not big on on scouting QBs personally. Don't have a lot of success with it, but it's one of those guys to keep my eyes on. Do you want to bring up another guy, Austin?
Sure. So I guess the last guy that I have to talk about that's on this list is Brennan Presley at Oklahoma State. I think he's an interesting one. You put him on there. Felix and I have gone back and forth. Felix Sharp on Brennan Presley. Because he's the slot receiver at Oklahoma State. And the slot receiver at Oklahoma State is kind of the proverbial redheaded stepchild of the receiving game at Oklahoma State. They just don't target that player a lot. And I've never necessarily doubted Brennan Presley's talent. I've always generally kind of doubted his role. If you go back and look at the past several years, they just always target the jump ball guy. On the outside, it was, Justin Blackmon. Then it was James Washington. Then it was, who's the guy with the Ravens right now?
Devin Duvernay?
No, he was he just got drafted this past year. I don't remember. It'll come to me right after the show. So
James Crochet went to SMU. You have Miles Boykin there. Tylan Wallace. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Tylan Wallace.
Yes, Tylan Wallace was the guy. And then this year it was Tay Martin. So just like to give you an idea, I mean, Brennan Presley in the slot, he had one game with 9 targets, one game with 8 targets, and then basically sat around, 5 to 7 every other game. Tay Martin, who is an inferior talent in virtually every single way on the outside, had double-digit targets, 8 out of 13 games this year, had multiple games with 14, 13, 12, and blew him away in virtually every statistical category. So I like Brennan Presley as an athlete. His brother is going to be a true freshman there, and he is a similarly styled athlete. So they'll both be there together. I just have a hard time believing that Presley will ever be like an alpha there. They have Jaden Bray, who was a true freshman last year. He was a big sleeper of mine. And then they bring in Talon Shetron this year as well, who's going to be a true freshman. He's a top 10 or so kid in the composite. Like 6'4", like really speedy, like outside boundary guy. So I just worry that Presley's going to, and then they run the ball a lot there too. They ran the ball, I think, in the country, like on a per game basis, like 7th or 8th most. So it just like doesn't leave a huge market share or a huge volume share in the first place. And then you pair that down with him being in the slot. So he's just one that I think is really hard to project for a ton of stats. I think he had, let me see exactly what he had this year. I think he had 50 catches. Yeah, 50 catches, 606 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like I could see him getting, 65, 808 or something, which is definitely a solid season. I just don't think he's ever going to be the go-to guy there in that offense.
Okay, I get that. I feel like you're being a little mean because he probably has worse eyesight than you. You're probably being a little mean towards him on that. You're kind of bullying him, Austin.
Brennan Presley? I like him. He's just a little guy. And Oklahoma,
right.
yell at Mike Gundy. He doesn't like the little guy.
Little guy
I
with
don't know what to
goggles.
tell
He's
you.
got.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's just an opportunity there. I'm gonna talk to you about Tylan Wallace after the show because I got some questions about him.
Oh man, I was a big Tylan Wallace hater. So.
Oh, really? Because I was a fan. So this is actually very insightful for me.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. All right. I do want to bring up one more guy. Where is he at? Okay, I already started. I want to bring up one more guy. Sean Tyler from West Michigan University. He's a smaller running back. Again, he's the guy that started to see his role increase towards the end of the year. I believe he's a smaller back, but for a college asset, I think that's where he could be. He had 14 for 146 yards and no touchdowns, 1 catch for 7 yards. I believe he's a freshman. And again, 3 of his last 4 games were for 100 yards. I just want to know what your thoughts are. I see the college asset and not much the NFL asset. And I believe I also saw that he does split the backfield currently right now.
Yeah, so this was his 3rd year, and I don't know exactly with the voodoo that is the redshirt year combined with the COVID year, like exactly what he is.
Right.
I can't necessarily tell you how many years he's got. I can't wait till like 2027 where all these guys are gone, and then I just know. It's a really interesting one, and I'm happy that we're talking about it, but I was kind of sitting here like, please don't talk Western Michigan. Please don't talk Western Michigan because they lose a lot this offseason. They lose their starting quarterback, Caleb Elby's heading to the draft. Right. So is their leading receiver, Sky Moore. Their second leading receiver, Jalen Hall, transferred out. And I believe their starting tight end is transferring out as well. So they lose like a lot of offensive pieces. Their head coach is Tim Lester. He's been there for years now. They've consistently been in the top 50 in the country in rush attempts per game. Like they do tend to lean on the running game. And he has in the past had backs that have gotten like all the touches, but they also were like Levante Bellamy was his lead back for multiple years there. And like, I don't know if that was a Levante Bellamy thing or if that was he would prefer one back if he can get one type thing. Like, I really don't know which is which. So, I mean, Ladarius Jefferson and Sean Tyler split the carries almost square in half this year, 185, 178. Tyler definitely was more of the receiving guy, 15 catches. So he might be a little more versatile. I think I personally slightly prefer Ladarius Jefferson as a football player. And I think they're both decent players. So I think I prefer Jefferson if all things are equal. I don't know if Sean Tyler can wholly take that job away.
Yeah, I think he's more of a stash for me. In the case of like an injury happens, I feel like then I would feel really great starting Sean Tyler in my lineups for the college side. So,
and I think he had one game without Ladarius Jefferson this year. And if I remember correctly, I'm trying to pull it up real quick and figure out which game it was. If I remember correctly, he underperformed, like disappointingly. Like everyone was like, this is the big week. One of them's finally on their own. And then he kind of like didn't do what we thought he would do. So that's always a killer when you kind of hope that one guy can take the job and they just don't want it.
All right, we're really killing it for me. So I'm gonna throw out one more. This is actually the absolute last one for me. I want to talk about the Mizzou running back Elijah Young. He's currently a sophomore. Now we just saw Mizzou pretty much feed the ball through Tyler Batty the entire season. I think his dominator was 40. I want to say it was 42%. It was above 42%. I can say that with confidence, which means he accompanied for like half the offense. And so he was not playing this bowl game. And Mizzou had to play a stout Service Academy defense, but at least we got a sneak peek at the team without Tyler Batty. And Elijah Young rushed the ball 13 attempts for 75 yards. Now here's the other thing, though, is that he had 5 receptions for 32 yards. So I don't know. Are we looking at next year's Tyler Batty? You know, like literally the same team. This guy's going to fill in that role, and that's how it's going to be.
Maybe. Maybe. Okay. I don't think we necessarily know who it's going to be yet. I actually feel more confident in saying that who was the quarterback that filled in? Brady or something like that?
I could not tell you on top of my head.
Because their quarterbacks left and they had Brady Cook or something like that. Maybe I don't remember. the start of the game. Like they have a lot of running back depth. They brought in a kid last year. A lot of people liked him, Taj Butts. Who's on the roster there. And he's a pretty well-rounded back. They're bringing in Tavoris Jones this year, who is a pretty dynamic guy. He's like a top 20-ish guy in the composite. So I don't think we know, but I do think Elijah Young, got the first punch in this game, and definitely, he didn't disappoint and possibly cost himself that job down the line. So I think he's definitely a guy to watch. And I think that offense does always flow through a running back. Before that, it was Larry Roundtree. I don't know who it'll be next year, but whoever it is, I think you definitely want that guy.
Yeah, this is what, again, because I wasn't really watching, this is just a box score analysis. Elijah Young was such a non-factor up until, since week 5. Like, he just stopped getting touches. And he's not listed as being injured for those weeks either. He had 1 carry for -5 yards against Florida. And then so pretty much from Tennessee to playing the Army, like he got like no touches. That was very interesting to me and a little bit cautionary. But I'm interested who's going to fill in all the opportunity that you talked about for like Alabama. I'm like interested in who fills in all the opportunity for Mizzou for the college fantasy side.
Yeah, and I mean, I think expecting, I think Beatty had like 55 catches last year. I think expecting that's a little much. I mean, Larry Roundtree was like the bell cow the year before that, and he had 15. So I think that wrinkle may have been somewhat unique to Beatty's skill set. But yeah, I mean, the year before that, Larry Roundtree had 209 carries. I mean, and this year Beatty had how many? 268 carries and then 54 catches. So like they definitely want to feed one guy if they can find one guy.
Okay. All right, that's all the prospects I had. You want to bring up anybody, Austin?
That's all I got. You exhausted my whole list. Nobody at Pitt.
All right.
I tried to find a Pitt guy that I could be excited about.
You got some nice transfers coming in. Yeah,
I mean, they have Jordan Addison. They've got the whole gang mostly back. So not necessarily a lot of guys stepping up.
All right. Well, I mean, Kentucky's looking good next year. That's all I'm saying. We get Chris Rodriguez back. Barry and Brown. Yes. We got Tavion Robinson from Virginia Tech. Anyway, it's going to be a great year for college football for Kentucky. Maybe for Pitt. I guess we'll see.
Oh, come on. You can bring me on your show and then be like, yeah, you're Pitt. I don't know.
I'd rather Will Levis than Keaton Slovis. I definitely would.
Well, that's your opinion.
All right. All right. Austin, I want to thank you again for coming on here. I really do appreciate it. Please, again, just tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, at Devy Dietz on Twitter and at campuscanton.com. Come check us out. It's rookie season, and we have a ton of the data that can help you sort through that.
Yeah, and honestly, this format, like the format at Campus Canton, that's like the way to take your game for Dynasty to the next level. You'll blow away your league mates because you'll know all the guys coming up, not just this year, but next year too. So you can start leveraging picks, kind of seeing who's more valuable, what class, and stuff like that. Get to know the players a little better. Yeah, just great group of guys, really knowledgeable. You just heard Austin just talk nonstop facts for about 50 minutes here.
And I'm like the 9th most knowledgeable person over there. So there are 8 people minimum that know more than me. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. And if you guys missed our last week's show, you can find it on Spotify or Apple. We talk about height and weight and how it relates to the NFL and NFL success, which would be fantasy success as well. All right. Thank you guys again. Have a good night.